Freedom of speech and freedom of expression. These are two things that all people have a right to, but when we ban books, are we taking those rights away? I've read the book The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, which is about a girl named Susie Salmon, who was tragically raped and murdered by a man named George Harvey, who she thought would bring her no harm. The rest of the story is told from Susie's perspective of the world from heaven. While she's watching down on them from heaven, she learns so many new things about her family, her friends, and her murderer as they try to figure out what exactly happened to her, as well as coping with her loss. The whole time you are reading this book is very intense and very detailed, which makes it really interesting to read. However, some of the content can be a little inappropriate, with the rape, drugs, religion, sexual content, and language. This was a cause for concern at a few middle schools, which resulted in either the banning of the book or the challenging of it. As far as the language and suggestive behavior in the book goes, this is not a good reason for the book to be banned because there are maybe 3 or 4 profane words used throughout the whole book. There wasn't a lot of bullshit in my heaven is a perfect example. And there was also only one drug scene when Ruth is having a hard time and needs relief. The only 2 causes for concern would really be the sexual content and the religious content. Several people would argue that the interpretation of heaven in the book doesn't follow a proper religion and that it is misleading. On Christmas Day, my family would have been more comfortable in heaven. Some people dressed all in white and pretended they were snowflakes, but other than that, nothing. The way the author has Susie interpret heaven, according to some people, isn't correct. But the question that I pose to those people is, do you really think that this book was meant to be focused on religion? If you do, then you are sadly mistaken. Also, you have to know that a religion is a belief, and no one has the right to tell you that what you believe in is wrong. So by banning the book for religious content, it's almost like you're trying to force students to conform to society and make them believe what you believe in, and I think that that's wrong. Lastly, there is sexual content throughout the book. Throughout the book, several of the characters have sexual relations, which are fairly detailed to a point where adults believe that it should be censored. The most intense scene takes place at the beginning of the book when Susie is raped and killed by George Harvey. "Take your clothes off," Mr. Harvey said. "I want to check to make sure you're still a virgin," was as detailed or inappropriate as it got. So now the question is it right to ban The Lovely Bones or not? This is an idea that I've pondered with, going back and forth. After having several discussions with friends and family, I think that it depends. You have to first take into consideration, who are you banning the book from? What is their maturity level? What do your parents think? And can the group have a discussion about the content without snickering? In this case, The Lovely Bones has been banned from middle schools. In some places, at this time, kids are becoming teenagers and they begin to learn about things that are totally new to them, and they are still very immature. So I would have to agree with the banning of the book. Now remember, this is not saying a middle schooler cannot read the book at all, just not in the middle school setting. If you really think that your child can handle it, that's great. Let them read it. It's not appropriate to discuss this book in a middle school setting because of the sexual content. It's a concept that should be discussed at home with parents at your own discretion. Now the question is, well, what about our freedom of expression? By not letting students read the book in school, are we taking a student's right to express themselves through reading? Even though this could be considered a part of our First Amendment rights, that is in the Constitution, there is also a piece in the Constitution which is the necessary and proper clause, which discusses censorship. When it comes down to it, banning of a book has many factors to consider, and it should be a common consensus among the vast majority of people that the book should be banned.